Hi friends, welcome to Parashat Terumah. This is the first of four parashiyot, of course, that deal with the building of the Mishkan, of the building of the tabernacle in the wilderness in such very great detail. But for the Hasidic books I love, I would say one of the most important verses in the entire Torah comes right at the beginning of this parasha. Ve'asu li mikdash v'shachanti betocham. Let them make me a holy place, and I will dwell within them. The simple reading may be, I will dwell in their midst, but that's not how they read it. They read within them, within each and every one of them. And they say, Lo betocho ne'amar ele betocham. It doesn't say I will dwell within it, within the sanctuary, but I will dwell within them, meaning within each of them. The Moreh Naim, which I like so much and which I spent so many years working with, says it this way. He says, first he took them out of Egypt, and then he split the sea for Israel. And then he brought them to Marah and gave them a few mitzvot, the mitzvah of Shabbat and a few others. And then he brought them to Sinai. And then he commanded them to build the Mishkan, to build the tabernacle. But it was all for this moment. It was all for Vasuli Migdash V'Shachanti Betocham. From the time of Philo in ancient Alexandria down to the Hasidic masters, they've read the verse this way. All of what I would call inward Judaism or spiritual Judaism has read it this way: let them make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell within them. And that means making a sanctuary within the heart. That's what inward Judaism is all about. The mystic believes that the whole function of religion, the purpose of religion altogether, is to help a person cultivate the inner life. To cultivate the inner life, to realize there is such a thing as an inner life. A place inside your heart where you experience your most intimate moments, where you feel the universal presence of divinity, however you understand it, and where you can turn for privacy, for solace, but for discovering and cultivating your deepest inner self. And to live in the presence of that deepest inner self, which for us believing folks is the presence of God within the person. That inner place is a place of connection to the universal one that dwells within us. What does religion have to do with this? Religion provides a language for that inner place. That place is beyond words. When you turn inward to those deeper spaces, words do not go with you there. But if you have a religious language, it gives you an ability to cultivate it, to express it, to understand in verbal terms what you're going through there. I remember I had an Aunt Ruth who always used to say, how do you say that in Jewish? And how do you say that in Jewish? Of course, for her meant, how do you say it in Yiddish? Because I grew up still in the presence of the immigrant generation to the United States, and if you wanted to talk to Tante Shifra Sora or somebody like that, you had to say it in Jewish. But of course, I always liked that line, how do you say it in Jewish? Which means, what is the Jewish language for that? Is there a Jewish language for that? Today we have a new generation of a great deal of inward seeking, quest for inner experience, for plumbing the depths of the self. Some of it with the help of psychedelics, sometimes via meditation or via yoga. But there's a great turn to inwardness going on in our world, possibly because the outer world is very difficult and very harsh and abrasive. But that turn inward needs a language, and we have a beautiful, rich language for it in Judaism. Standing at the burning bush, going to the mountaintop, and here it's building the Mishkan, building the inner tabernacle. We find a place within ourselves from which we can look at the world and see Shekhinah, see the presence of that which dwells. Mishkan and Shekhinah in Hebrew are the same word. A Mishkan is a place for Shekhinah. Remember the moment when Moses is on Mount Sinai and asks to see God's glory, and God says, you cannot see my face, but you will see my rear, and then as my glory passes by, here is a place with me, beautiful three little words, Hine makom iti. Here is a place by me. Sit down. There's room on this bench next to me. Come sit. Have a seat. And I will put my arm over you. I will put my palm over you when my glory passes, so you won't be hurt. So if the master of the universe, or the oneness of being, or Yud He Vav He, that which was, is, and will be, says to me, Hine makom iti, here's a place with me, I want to respond by saying, Hine makom iti, I'm going to make room for you in my life. I'm going to move my ego aside a little bit. I'm going to move my own preoccupation with my needs aside and say, come, sit by me. Hine makom iti, I'm going to make you a mishkan so that you may dwell within me. That's what it's all about. All the rest, the traditions, the laws, the practices, the music, the words of the liturgy, everything else is a means toward this end, the cultivation and the provision of language for approaching our own inner lives. In Hebrew, you can't quite call this dat. You can do this without being dati in the conventional sense. The modern Hebrew language just didn't give us a good language for it. The question Israelis ask, are you dati or not dati? Meaning, of course, are you observant, are you orthodox or not? Does not allow for an answer like, no, I'm not dati, but I'm making a place in my heart for the presence of the Universal One. In next week's Parsha, we're going to read a verse that says, I took you out of Egypt, that the children of Israel should know that I took them out of Egypt, l'shochni betocham, to dwell within them. That's what the whole thing is about. That's why God brought us forth from Egypt and gave us the freedom to be thinking and creative human beings, so that we would make a mishkan, so that there would be a dwelling place for the divine within the human heart. That's what it's all about. Vasuli mikdash, v'shachanti betocham. Thanks for listening. Shabbat shalom.